Okay, now I'm going to push this aside, let him set up, because I can't do a thing with it for about half an hour. Here's the one I finished last night. I'm trying to do the video during the daylight hours because it's the only true light I can get. I tried with light bulbs and it looks yellow. But here you can see the imprint of my mold inside. You fit in here just like this. After I have the rubber mold off of him, I'll lay him in here, this over the top, clamp these two together, stand him here because my pour hole I've left on top. It's ugly. I didn't care what it looked like. Oh, I'm gonna use it once, maybe on the outside twice. It's a lot of work to get a duplicate off your model, but this is what you have to do. If you need your model to stay intact, unblemished, unbroken, you have got to make a rubber mold, and then over the rubber mold make yourself a mother mold. You can do this with rigid plastic like this, or you can use plaster, and I think plastic is much easier on your body. Now what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to smooth off the edges. I can use my Dremel and just grind it and smooth it off. And then right at the seams, you will see in yours, when you make one, when you add the second half of your mother mold, you get a little, just a tiny ridge of like seepage where it, I don't know how to explain it, where it seep down inside between your rubber mold and the mold you already made. What I'm going to do is grind that down because it doesn't have to be that tight. All I want to do is glove my rubber mold so that it cannot expand anywhere where I don't want it to. I want it to be the exact proportions that it was in when I cast the rubber mold to begin with. And this is what's going to hold it from expanding when you pour anything inside of it. Now, I was going to talk a little bit more about undercuts. You can see that when I pulled this one off of the rubber mold, it came out clean. That's including feet stuck down in these little holes. See that? And the reason being that I was very careful not to let anything do this. Okay? If you have anything along the edges or on the body of it that sits at an angle like this, away from your model, and your plastic then comes along and sits right there. If you do that on both sides, how is your plastic going to pull away? In other words, it's like this. If my hand was a steel ball inside of a steel casing, how would I pull it away? It would have to be straight sides so that it can come apart. That is what I mean by an undercut. Anything that causes this. Oops. Yuck. I just stuck my fingers in the plastic. That was... Alright, my next step is not going to be an easy one. I cannot do this while I'm recording it. I have to put on magnifying glasses and stick my nose right into my work. But I'm going to be using these tiny little things. These are my little needlework scissors very, very sharp. And I'm going to be using a brand new X-Acto blade to make a seam. Oh, let's see. Right along the side of his head, down his shoulder to the fingers. Now, you know that I've completely gloved this hand in, and the fingers are spread out like this. So I'm going to have to find those fingers without hurting them. That does mean very, very tedious work, and probably a couple hours per hand to get it free without doing any damage. But I'm going to follow along. I want the fingers split. I want the mold around the fingers split. Then back up the inside of the arm, down the side, and stop. And I'll do that on both sides, because once I'm able to pull the mold this way off of my model, I shouldn't have to put a seam on the inside of the legs. I'm hoping it'll pull away without damage, without pulling or anything. Just providing an outside seam all the way around. So that's what I'm going to do while I'm gone. And like I said, I cannot, it's impossible for me to record that. When I get done, I'll show you what I've done and give you an example of how I went about it. But there's just no possible way I can see to record while I'm actually doing it.